And welcome to the New Jersey Globe Rider University 2026 Democratic Congressional Primary Debate from New Jersey's 7th District, live from the Hamilton Stage Auditorium of the Union County Performing Arts Center in Rahway. I'm David Wildstein, the editor of the New Jersey Globe, and I'll be asking questions this evening along with Joey Fox, the New Jersey Globe Washington reporter, and Micah Rasmussen, the director of the Rebovich Institute for New Jersey Politics at Rider University. Some questions will come from Rider students. This debate is brought to you by Uber and presented by RWJ Barnabas Health and the New Jersey Education Association. With us tonight are 4 candidates seeking the Democratic nomination for Congress in the 7th District for the chance to take on 2-term Republican Congressman Tom Kean Jr. in one of the most competitive districts in the country. The candidates have agreed to the rules of this debate. One quick request of our audience: I'm going to ask that you hold your Jersey-style applause, except for right now when you welcome your candidates for the Democratic nomination. Former U.S. Navy helicopter pilot Rebecca Bennett. ICU physician and former Obama and Biden administration official Tina Shah. Former Biden administration official Michael Roth. And entrepreneur and grassroots organizer Brian Varela. So we are going to go right to the opening statements by through a draw. Dr. Shah is going first for 90 seconds. All the candidates, feel free to sit in your seat, move around the stage, whatever you like.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Dr. Tina Shah. I'm an ICU physician and a healthcare policy expert. I am running for Congress because America is in critical condition. A few weeks ago, I took care of a gentleman, Mr. S., who came in with a life-threatening complication of diabetes. He has a full-time job but couldn't afford his medication. No one should require the ICU because basic medical care is too expensive. But that's what we see under Tom Kean Jr. and Donald Trump. I was appointed by President Obama and served in 3 White House administrations. At the Department of Veterans Affairs, I expanded access to primary care for veterans. And right here in New Jersey, I took on the insurance companies and helped to pass legislation that stops them from denying essential medical care. In business, I helped to grow a small startup into a multi-billion-dollar business. That's the kind of leadership that we deserve here in CD7. And as your member of Congress, I will fight Trump to make sure that we protect our democracy, that we lower costs, that we restore our shrinking middle class, and that we fix our healthcare system. Now, I fight for the lives of CD7 residents right here in Rahway Hospital. And just like I fight here, I'm ready to take that fight to DC because we deserve better than Tom Kean Jr. Thank you.
Mr. Varela.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. There we go. My name is Brian Varela, and I'm running to unseat Tom Kean Jr. because what this moment demands right now is someone who is a fighter. Donald Trump and his cronies have changed the rules to the game, and we need someone who knows how to fight, and I am someone who's fought my entire life. I fought to pay my way through school when my parents couldn't afford it. I fought to keep my family afloat when my mom got sick and my parents went out of business. I fought to raise my younger brother when my mom passed 2 years later. He was 13. That was hard. I fought to build a business from scratch during COVID, and I built it into one of the fastest growing companies in the country. And I want to continue that fight. Over the past few years, I fought to expand the Democratic Party, especially in the red-leaning parts of the state. And that's the kind of fight that we need right now. And I want to take that fight down to DC. I want to fight for affordability because the squeeze on working class and middle class families is too much right now. I want to fight for Medicare for all because the fact that we pay the most amongst developed nations per capita, but somehow have one of the worst qualities of care amongst developed nations, to me is unacceptable. And last but definitely not least, I want to fight to defend our democracy. We've got an administration that is off the rails. We've got the Trump family enriching themselves to the tune of north of $1 billion. And as a first-generation Colombian American, I am appalled by the attacks that we're seeing in our immigrant communities. That's why I'm proud to say that I was the first candidate to ask for Noam's impeachment, and we need to dismantle Trump's ICE. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bennett?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us here, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight. My name is Rebecca Bennett. I'm a former Navy pilot and test pilot, healthcare leader, mom of two. My life is the story of the American dream. I was able to go to college because I earned an ROTC scholarship, and I worked 2 jobs on top of that to pay the bills my scholarship didn't cover. I used the GI Bill for my MBA. My husband and I bought our house with a VA loan. I am where I am today because of programs like that, because of the promise of America. And I believe in the future of this country. I believe we can create a future where every kid has a fair shot at the American dream, just like I did, where you can work hard and build the life you want to be able to build, and where everybody feels safe in their community. That is not what is happening in this country right now. This Trump administration is destroying our democracy. They are enriching themselves, and they are making our problems worse. Tom Kean Jr. is a coward, and he is complicit. We are going to hold him accountable in November. But here's the thing. We can't just be anti-Trump and anti-Kean. We have to be for something. We have to solve the problems we are all facing in our everyday lives. That means tackling our cost of living crisis, making our healthcare system work for all of us, and protecting our rights and freedoms. I've put together a robust policy platform based on what I've heard most from all of you over the last year. So I want to thank you all so much for being out here tonight, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth.
Good evening. Thank you to the moderators for putting this on. My name is Michael Roth, and in times of crisis, I step up. When millions of small businesses were shut down during COVID, I stepped into the Small Business Administration, oversaw the Paycheck Protection Program, and saved 1 million jobs right here in New Jersey. When Donald Trump fought to take funding away from Planned Parenthood clinics and immigrant-owned small businesses, I fought back, and I won and delivered millions. Tonight, we are in crisis again. You're going to hear from all of the candidates tonight saying that they will fight Trump and lower costs. I ask you tonight to listen for the proof versus the DC talking point, because we deserve somebody who is going to show up, who is going to listen. And I have spent my whole career fighting against the status quo and showing up in my hometown district and delivering. I am proud to be endorsed by 5 indivisible chapters across this district because they know that I will show up for the people. And together we can build a government, an economy, and a politics that works for you, the people. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. I am going to jump into our questions with something that I think is top of mind, certainly in DC, and I think for a fair number of voters in the 7th District. The man that you're all running against, Congressman Tom Kean Jr., has been missing from Washington for more than 2 months due to an unspecified health issue. His office has not provided any specific explanation for what's wrong or when he might be back. So obviously, we all wish him the best. But as an elected official, what duty do you think politicians have to be open with constituents about their health issues? And I'll start with Mr. Varela on this.
Sure, and to your point, Joey, we all wish Congressman Kean that he's okay and that he's healthy. But look, at the end of the day, you're a public servant. And while I don't think you need to be putting out your own personal medical history out there, you at the very least have a responsibility to be communicating with your constituents and with your district. And while Congressman Kean has been absent for the most part, no town halls, these scripted telephone things that are kind of weird, there's not a lot that's really changed from then to now. He's still absent, and he is still not communicating with constituents. So frankly, I think that we're maybe more aware of it because of the health reasons behind it. But from my perspective, nothing's really changed.
In general, we'll ask the question of one person, but if anybody else wants to jump in on the question, then after that, you are always free to do so. So does anyone else want to address that one?
Sure, yeah. I wish Tom Kean Jr. well. I hope that he is healthy. If you were missing work, you would tell your boss. And Tom Kean Jr.'s boss is the people. He did not tell us. That's it. And in the time that he did not show up for work, he has raised more than $600,000 just from corporate PACs alone. That tells you who his boss is. Okay? He is absent now, but he has been absent way before. When Union County needed him, he was absent. When there's flooding through our streets, absent. When there's PFAS found in our water, absent. When they're trying to build a warehouse to warehouse people in this district, he is absent. It is time that we get a member of Congress who will show up.
Ms. Shah?
So first, I just want to say, I hope that Tom Kean Jr. is going to get to that path of recovery, and I wish him all the best for his health. And, I think independent of being a physician, what I'll say is this. There was even an article that came out today. He has unfortunately missed 2 months worth of work. And what we are being assured is that his team is carrying the torch. But we elected Tom Kean Jr., not his team. We want to see a representative who's able to communicate to us, even though he's human and he is allowed to deal with his own personal medical issues. But this is not that. We are watching someone who has a history of just avoiding reaching out to his constituents and being available to his constituents. And we deserve more in CD7.
And Ms. Bennett?
So, to echo everybody else up here, I wish him well and I hope he has a speedy recovery. Looking at his voting record, he has absolutely failed us. He was the deciding vote on the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is why tens of thousands of people in our district are losing access to their health insurance. He was nowhere to be found when ICE tried to put a detention facility into Roxbury. And he was nowhere to be found when Trump held up the funding for Gateway Tunnel to make sure we can get this critical infrastructure done. And so we are going to hold him accountable for his voting record in November and flip this seat. Thank you.
Ms. Bennett, the next question is for you anyway.
Yep,
so if you
great.
want to just...
Yeah, I'll just
After this, we'll get into policy questions, I promise. But I do think another key concern for voters in this district is more so than any individual policy concern, who will beat Tom Kean Jr., who will flip the seat blue. So I'll ask you first, and I'll ask everyone, why do you think you personally are best positioned more than anyone else on this stage to do that?
Yeah, and I'll just say, I hear this from people all the time, which is I just want to win, because we can't do anything if we don't win first to be able to flip this seat. And my background as a military veteran, working in healthcare, being a mom of two, really uniquely positioned me on being able to flip this seat. There was a study that was done that shows that Democrats that are veterans outperform other Democrats by about 6 points. And that's the margin in this race. And I see it in real life all the time. I was in Somerville the other day, and somebody on the street overheard that I was a Navy pilot, and he just stopped to tell me he's going to vote for me. And I was like, you might want to kick the tires a little bit, before you vote for me. But, that opens the door to having a conversation, and people get to know me, they get to know my values, and they have confidence that I'm going to make the right decision in the room when the door is closed. And so that is how we're going to be able to flip the seat, is by getting, our base motivated and excited and being able to appeal to independent voters and center-right Republicans. Thanks.
Anyone else want to? Sure.
Okay. I want to bring you back to the intensive care unit in Rahway Hospital, just about a mile away. When I step into that room, it's like I've got 90 seconds. I have 90 seconds to build trust. And if I can build the trust with the patient and their family, they tell me the clues so that I can make the diagnosis and then we can figure out the treatment together. That is the same approach I've taken as I have gotten the opportunity to meet people in our community across the district. I don't know when the person's in my ICU room, whether they are a D or an R or an I, but what I know is that everyone has a story of how they worry about their health, and that's what bridges us together. People trust their doctor, and we see that. Additionally, I'm the only candidate that has a track record of working across the aisle for 3 presidents and also delivering here for New Jersey by fighting health insurance companies in a bipartisan way.
Just to correct the record on that last piece, I have also worked across the aisle in multiple ways. I see my timer's running, so I'm going to focus on this question now. So look, I've got the right message, the coalition, and the politics for this moment. First, Tom Kean Jr. won this election on the economy. He promised lower gas prices, lower energy bills, lower healthcare costs. How'd he do? I'm the only candidate on the stage who spent his career lowering cost. Second, the coalition. The grassroots of this district is behind our campaign. And there are 50,000 small businesses in this district who received federal funding from the Small Business Administration when I was there. Just a fraction of those small businesses is a coalition that wins in 2026 and holds in 2028. And lastly, the politics. Look, there are Democrats, independents, and Republicans who are all sick and tired of the same politicians who are controlled by special interests, who have DC talking points.
That is time. I'm sorry.
And I am the opposite of that.
The fact of the matter is that in 2024, Donald Trump beat us for a variety of reasons. He appealed to young voters, he appealed to men, he appealed to Hispanics. Ladies and gentlemen, I am literally a young Hispanic male. I love it when that gets a laugh. But furthermore, we saw Tom Kean Jr. ride those coattails, right? And I think that what we are seeing across the country previously has been a lack of energy within the Democratic Party. And the reason for that is that we continue to nominate the same establishment type Democrats. These are Democrats that don't understand what working class and middle class families are going through. And it's time that we bring in an outsider, someone that knows what it's like to live the struggle, someone that can connect, someone that knows what are the kitchen table issues that keep parents up at night. Because at the end of the day, when I talk to voters, it's not left versus right, it is top versus bottom, and they're going to vote for the candidate who's going to provide the issues to what they're seeing every day.
This next question.
So, David, since I used some of my time, I just want to rebut something that Dr. Shah said.
Actually, unless you were attacked in New Jersey, attacked is a very unique word. We're just going to move on. And also, as long as I'm speaking, I love this audience, but would remind everybody to please withhold their applause so that we can hear from the candidates.
We will begin this next question with Tina Shah. On Friday, we learned that labor's share of U.S. output fell to 54% in the first quarter, the lowest since this number was first reported 80 years ago. Realistically, how much can U.S. policy do to prevent a further deterioration of the economic position of workers?
Our president is reckless, period. Under President Trump, we've seen this chicken game with tariffs, where sometimes the tariff is 10%, sometimes it's 30%. And you know what? When I talk to small business owners across the district, they tell me that they don't know if they can afford to keep their workforce. And that's what we're seeing. The first thing we need to do is actually restore checks and balances. And that's why I'm here to flip this seat, because Tom Kean Jr. is not standing up to Trump. There is a lot that we can do to protect the workforce. And as a person who's pro-union, I want to make sure that we continue to have the good jobs that we have here in New Jersey. For example, if we continue along the path and be the vanguards in green energy, we can also continue to have the associated jobs. There's so much potential here in New Jersey. We just have to harness it, and it starts by stopping Trump.
When I'm out in the district, I see firsthand the impacts that this administration is having on everyday families. And there are a lot of issues with it, but the one that I really want to point out today is the amount of dark money in politics. Citizens United is single-handedly one of the worst things that has ever happened to this country, because it's the same type of influences and the directions to which they're moving legislation that are affecting our working class and middle class families most. And what I want to point out is that when this administration came into power, they gutted the investments in renewables and into green energy. And what a lot of folks don't realize is that when you gutted that, you eliminated millions of jobs, right? What we're talking about is economy making potential that exists by those investments that we would have made. And here's the thing, this isn't an experiment. We've done this before. When we electrified America, we created more jobs, we created new businesses, and we created new industries. This administration is literally attacking the programs that would do the exact same thing, which would then address the labor issues that we're seeing in this country.
Trump is a symptom of this issue. We have had decades of increasing wealth gap in this country. And right here in New Jersey, we really feel it. New Jersey has the third highest unemployment, second to last in economic opportunity. We have to create good jobs here. When I was working with a major semiconductor company, they were looking for a place with land and talent to build 10,000 jobs, average pay $175,000. Most people did not require a college degree. They got applications from 300 members of Congress across the country. 0 from the state of New Jersey. That is why we don't have economic growth. That is why our property taxes keep going up. We need leaders who can bring good jobs of the future back here to New Jersey. Thank you.
So for folks that have heard me talk, one of the things I talk about quite a bit is childcare, because it is a crisis in this country right now. When my 2 girls were in full-time daycare, we were paying over $3,500 a month for them to be in childcare. That is a mortgage. It is an astronomical amount of money that we're asking families to pay. And I know so many families that are having fewer kids, or they're dropping out of the workforce because they just can't afford to pay for it. We lose over $120 billion a year in economic productivity in this country because of our childcare issues. So my proposal is modeled after what we do for the Department of Defense, and it's a sliding scale based on how much money you make. But we cap the cost at 7% of people's incomes, and we pay for that by undoing the Trump tax cuts on the top 1% from last year. But what we've seen is that during the pandemic, we saw significant increases in the labor force participation rate for women, and a lot of those gains have been erased now because of return to office. And so we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure like childcare to make sure that people are able to go to work and to be able to be part of that labor gain. Thank you.
This question will start with Mr. Roth. All of you have earned graduate and undergraduate degrees, and you each seem convinced that higher education had a lot to do with your success. Does it concern you that more students are being convinced that college isn't worth it for them, or is it a good thing to tell them that not everyone needs to go to college?
My success first starts in New Jersey public schools. It's where I first grew, then I went to Lehigh and then Wharton. But the path for people now is very different. Right now, again, in our labor market, college graduates in New Jersey have double-digit unemployment rates. The pathways of the old are not going to be the pathways of the future. What we really need to focus on is creating trade schools, all sorts of opportunities for jobs of the future. There is no one size fits all. Everybody should be able to determine the right pathway for them. The worst thing that could happen is if we put a whole generation into school, put $200,000 of debt on them, and then they come out of that without a job. That is what's happening right now, and we need to change that reality.
So I think if you want to go to college, great. If you want to go to a trade school, great. I think it's about how do we support people in building their version of the American dream. And for me, this is an area that I volunteered quite a bit before I decided to run for office, because people that are making the transition from getting out of the military and moving into their second career is really hard. It's really hard for a lot of us. And so I spent a lot of time volunteering in that space. But I think there's an opportunity here when we look at apprenticeships, because we have not modernized that program from a federal level for decades. And so we have an opportunity to make sure we're modernizing and streamlining the processes. I'm just going to use the carpenters as an example here, because there's an 11,000 wait list for people that want to join the carpenters apprentice program. And so this is a win-win. We can make sure that we have more good union jobs in our district to be able to get more projects done from an infrastructure perspective, and also make sure that we can help people be able to get into programs like that. So those are the types of things that I'm going to focus on in office.
So what we are seeing here in this country has been an evolution, right? And I think that for a very long time, we had this mentality that a four-year degree was the only way to go. But I think we've all come to realize that that's really not the case anymore. And as a matter of fact, we are starting to see that there's a lot of college grads who are struggling to find employment. And even when they do, they're not necessarily making, especially with the evolution of AI, it's getting harder and harder out there. But we also have a retiring generation of people who are leaving the workforce. And I'll tell you, while AI is going to do a lot of things, there are some things AI will not do. It will not be able to fix your plumbing. It will not be able to fix your HVAC. It will not be able to fix your roof. And so we need to create a pathway for people where four-year degrees are maybe not for them, but perhaps trade schools are. And I, as a proud beneficiary of Pell Grants, I don't think I'd be standing here today without Pell Grants. I can tell you that we need to actually not just bring back the investment into those types of programs, but we need to increase it. And we need to open up a pathway for all of the other schools so everyone has an opportunity, regardless of which direction to go in.
So I'm a triple boarded physician. I've definitely trained a little bit. I'm going to say this, though. What Trump is doing right now, and Tom Kean Jr. is complicit, is he's taking away the choice of whether we want to go to college or not. Right now, we are watching the funding for public schools get gutted by this administration that has tried to shutter the Department of Education. So we have the greatest public schools, and I'm a public school grad coming right here, coming from New Jersey. But if we don't invest, then we don't even have the opportunity. Trump has also made it so hard to make sure that you have loans so that you can afford to go to college and afford to even go to grad school beyond that. Now, I come from the medical profession. Trump has actually declassified nurses that want to pursue advanced degrees, calling them unprofessional, and that's capping the amount that they can borrow. He is taking away our choice, and we shouldn't stand for it. Now, on the other side, if you choose that you want to go into an apprenticeship program or a trade school, we have the greatest state in the country to be able to do that. And we should be making sure that people have the choice, not what Trump's doing right now.
Thank you. I have a question, and Mr. Varela, we'll start with you. We're all talking a lot about affordability in this campaign, and I want to get an idea what you believe the numbers are on affordability. So there's a lot of talk about rich and poor and the middle class. I'd like you to define this for a family of four. What do you think the annual income is when a family becomes middle class in New Jersey? And what's the number for a family to be considered rich?
Are the kids in college? I mean, I'll tell you, if you got a family of four and you're living in District 7 and your kids are within college age, you're probably on assistance, or at least should be. The cost of living here in New Jersey is ridiculously high. It's one of the reasons that I am flabbergasted that Congressman Kean came out and wrote some propaganda about how he increased the salt tax deduction, right? When in actuality, if he hadn't been the deciding vote on the big, terrible bill, there would be no cap, right? Which means that the families here in our district would be able to live just a little bit better. I think that when it comes to families in this district and with how expensive New Jersey is, it's the same types of programs that the Trump administration is cutting that are affecting those families the most. Whether it was subsidizing tax breaks for the billionaires on the backs of middle class and working class families, whether it was the attack on the Department of Education or the attack on healthcare, the attacks on these programs is what's making life expensive for all of us. But somehow we have $200 billion for a war that no one wants.
So let me, before you go, I want to get a number from you.
Sure.
What should a household of four, let's make the kids 10 and 12. Okay. What should a household of four be earning a year to be considered middle class in New Jersey and be able to afford to live a middle class lifestyle? I'd
say about $300,000.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Roth. So everybody's doing math right now in their head.
I'll answer the question directly first, and I'll say about $200,000 to $250,000. But one thing that should upset everybody: Elon Musk makes more money than all 9.5 million New Jersey residents combined, and he has an effective tax rate of 3.5%. What would you do if you paid 3.5% of taxes? That's actually a policy choice. All New Jersey residents could pay 3.5% of taxes, or Elon Musk could. That's a policy choice. Meanwhile, if you're at the top end of the income bracket in New Jersey, making a little over $600,000, you're taxed over 50%. And I don't shed tears for you, but you're not spending your weekends on yachts. And if you're making a little above minimum wage, you're making around $40,000 a year, and you are qualified for SNAP benefits and Medicaid. The inequality in this country is so great, and we have to have real solutions to close the inequality.
Dr. Shah.
My number is 250, but you just gave us family of 4, 2 kids. I don't want to stereotype. It's the average, I'm going to say. I want to tell a story though, and this is what affordability means to me. I took care of a woman who came in with a headache, and unfortunately, she was found to be bleeding in her brain. That's life-threatening. We were trying to get her into the ICU. She needed monitoring, but she stopped us. So the ER doctor called me. I ran down to the ER, and the woman said, look, it's Wednesday. I can't lose my job because I got to make rent. Can I come back on Saturday? That's what affordability crisis looks like, and that's exactly what Tom Kean Jr. has empowered Trump to do. Now, while we're having this war with Iran, we could have easily paid more over for Medicaid and for many of the other programs that help support people when they need a little extra help. So we need to get to that goal. We don't put people in a state where they have to choose between life-saving care and putting a roof over their kids' heads.
Thank you. Ms. Bennett.
Yeah, I drive a 2010 Honda Accord. And I drive that not because I like driving a 16-year-old car, but because we can't afford to buy a new one, because cars are really expensive and it costs $35,000 per year to raise a kid in New Jersey. And, we live in one of the most affluent districts in the country, but it still feels tight because everything is so expensive. And so to answer your question, I would say in the 150 ballpark is probably where that number would need to be. But, this is about what I hear most from people is addressing the cost of living crisis. And my husband and I understand the challenges that we're facing because my family is dealing with them too. My oldest daughter is in public school. My youngest is in daycare. And so when we're talking about the fact that we don't buy beef anymore because groceries have gotten so expensive, or I'm driving a 16-year-old car, this is my life. And so I understand these challenges. And so it's about having actual pragmatic solutions to be able to actually bring costs down for families in our district.
Thank you. You can stay right there. The next question is for
great.
you. So we'll be efficient.
It's like second time. It's like,
We'll be efficient, yeah. So New Jersey's 7th district is one of the most affluent, not just in New Jersey, but in this country. How would you, as a member of Congress, balance the economic priorities of your own district and your own constituents with your own social responsibility to help those in need of government assistance?
Yeah, I will say that, the needs of our district will certainly come first. And that's really the reason I want to go represent all of us, is to be able to go fight for all of us in Washington. I'll just say one of the things that I do hear people bring up quite a bit is, there's concern about the debt and the deficit. And, we're at World War II levels of debt in this country. And so to me, I think it's about making sure that we're leaving this country better off than we found it. And we're thinking about how are we making sure the social safety net is secure and in place. And so I'll just use as an example here, Social Security, because we know that it's going to be insolvent, certainly in my lifetime. And so one of the things that I've proposed is that we raise the cap on Social Security tax for people that are making over $1 million to be able to address some of the deficit that we're seeing. But to me, I think it's about making those trade-offs and making sure that ultimately we are fighting to make sure we're leaving this country better off for our kids, and also that we're taking care of what we need in this district and making sure we're getting the resources back that we need.
Mr. Varela?
So yes, this is one of the most affluent districts in the country, but what people fail to realize is that we've got a huge working class population, whether you're talking about places like Linden and Rahway, whether you're talking about Mount Olive, if you're talking about Washington Borough or Phillipsburg. We've got huge populations of people in those areas that don't necessarily get close to that bar, that average that we're looking at. And I think that when it comes to serving the people of this district, I actually categorize them all in the same bucket. Perhaps it's different income levels, but they're all still struggling with, or a lot of people are struggling with rent and the mortgage and groceries and gas and healthcare, right? So what I propose is that as a representative for this district is to really look at the ways that we can drive tax revenues in a way that we can be there for our working and middle class families where we're not raising taxes on them, right? I actually have a similar idea around what Rebecca just shared with Social Security. I think we donut hole it and we increase the cap for anyone making north of $500,000, right? And I think that it's really reworking the tax system to make sure that the billionaires are paying what they should be paying.
Dr. Shah?
Right now we're saying, and this is not we, right now the Trump administration is saying that it's okay to give tax breaks to billionaires and corporations. We're really talking about the ultra wealthy and corporations, and that's been at the expense of all of us that live in CD7 when it comes to making sure that we can live our lives and we can raise our families. The first thing I would do is get rid of what he did in the big ugly bill and make sure that we stop those tax breaks and really return this money back, because that is going to help our district in a very massive way. From ensuring that we can fund Medicaid, where 1 in 5 New Jerseyans relies on Medicaid, to making sure that we can actually return that money back to our schools. Number 2, and I'm going to talk about schools for a second. I had an amazing conversation with some folks in Bridgewater who told me that the public school system, when they look at the budget, their health insurance premiums skyrocketed close to 30%. All of this trickles back to taxpayer dollars. Not only do we need a fair and just tax system, but we also need to make sure that we lower costs, and one of the top costs right now is healthcare. Now, I fought insurance companies to make sure.
We're at time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Roth.
I believe that the role of government is to always fight for and protect the most vulnerable in our community. And that's the focus. I met a woman who worked at Walmart a couple weeks ago. She's making just above minimum wage. She is on SNAP benefits, and she cannot leave her job because she will lose her SNAP benefits because there's work requirements, and she will lose her health care because of that as well. And she uses her SNAP benefits at Walmart, as 1 in 4 people do. And so this money that is coming into her, it's going back to Walmart. It is corporate welfare. It's not welfare for people. We need to reform our social safety net so that it actually works for people and not the corporations who are profiting behind them.
The next question is from Sky Nicholson. She's a Rider University student who lives in Rahway, and it will go to Dr. Shah first.
Hello, all candidates. But Dr. Shah, as a young adult who will eventually try and buy a home in New Jersey where housing costs and property taxes have increased significantly, what policy would you create to reassure my generation that owning a home or home ownership is even possible at this point?
This is such a great question. Thank you for asking it. Where we're at right now is a housing crisis. You're coming out of college or you're in the workforce and trying to buy your first home. We're also watching at the same time, seniors can't afford to stay in their homes. Every single generation is dealing with this housing issue. One of the first things we can do is make sure that we stop private equity from artificially raising the prices. They are buying up our homes and then they are raising up the prices, and that's the only choice we have. We need to do that first. Second, and this has been mentioned, but Tom Kean Jr. has not done his job in bringing funding back and bringing resources back. As your member of Congress, I'm going to make sure that we get all the federal funding we can to make it so that you can get a loan, or we can ease it so that you can afford your first home, because that's part of the American dream. We all deserve that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sky, thanks for that question. You don't have to stand. Thank you. I was talking to another college student in the district the other day, and he told me basically the same thing, which is like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to buy a house. And I don't blame you guys for feeling that way. And I hear this, when I'm talking to people that are in college or early in career, the job market sucks for you guys right now. You can't afford an apartment, and you're looking at this and saying, how in the world am I going to be able to buy a house? The average age to buy a house is 40. And so from a housing perspective, I put out a full housing policy, but I do have a specific thing in there to make sure that we have credits to help you guys be able to buy a house. But I'll say part of it is a housing inventory issue, because 97% of our homes in the district are occupied right now. And I don't know about you guys, but I have a 3% mortgage. I'm like, I'm never leaving this house. I'm going to stay here forever. And so one of the things is we have to think more creatively about how do we help people that are empty nesters that want to downsize to be able to give families that want to move into a bigger house, and basically how do we get the housing market moving again? And so one of the ideas I've put together is basically leveraging what we do for VA and FHA loans to be able to make more mortgages more portable. But I know I'm at time, so I'll stop. Thank you.
Mr. Varela.
So we are seeing a record number of people who would like to plan for their future. Parents are thrilled right now, by the way, or most of you are, right? Because their college kids or post-college kids are staying at home. But I've got news for you. They don't want to be there. And so I think that this really has to be tackled through 2 different ends. So for starters, we need to have first-time homebuyer tax credits and things of the sort, right? Programs to incentivize and make sure that it's affordable for young people who want to get into their starter homes. But on the other end, Citizens United. We have a lot of dark money in politics that has basically created a system that doesn't benefit regular people, right? So for one of the things that we need to do immediately is we need to ban private equity firms from hoarding single family homes, right? Number two, we need to implement policies that expand supply. When it comes to the lack of housing, it is entirely a supply issue. In the New Jersey 7, we've got an abundance of options for housing. We've got abandoned strip malls, we've got warehouses, we've got low tenant commercial properties. There are federal programs that exist right now where we could use those funds to restructure that infrastructure for housing.
Just start and say, Rebecca's housing policy of portable mortgages would be the biggest thing that could drive up the wealth gap in this country, create inflation, and potentially lead us to a recession. Because if you were lucky enough to have a 3% mortgage and you can afford another home, that's going to drive up the prices of all homes. And that's going to make it harder for you to get your home. And so what we need are real serious solutions. And these are things that I've worked on my entire career. I've created a nonprofit, the Economic Opportunity Coalition, that brought together 26 US senators, 13 Democrats, 13 Republicans to bring good paying jobs into districts like this and then build homes around it. That is how we actually solve this issue. You create good jobs and build homes around it. Thank you.
Would you like to? Oh, okay. So, Mr. Roth, the next question is actually going to be for you again. And I'm going to shift a little bit more into foreign policy. It has now been more than 60 days since the United States first struck Iran, which the War Powers Act defines as something of a deadline for, the president having to seek approval from Congress. So is there any circumstance under which you can see yourself as a congressman voting for an authorization of the use of military force and effectively giving this conflict sort of the go-ahead from Congress?
Of any conflict or of this one?
Specifically this conflict in Iran.
The way that the Trump administration has entered into this war with no congressional approval, no clear objective, no plans to save civilian lives, it is completely unacceptable. I would never vote for that. What they are trying to do right now, create make-believe laws so that they can extend this deadline. It needs to end. First thing that I would do when I get into Congress is sign a War Powers Act that brings the power back to Congress. So no, I would not.
Yeah.
We have $1.5 trillion for the Pentagon. We have $200 billion for a war in Iran, but we don't have money for healthcare, and we don't have money for housing. We're going to run out of money for Social Security. The United States under Trump's administration has truly done something so baffling to me. They managed to put the squeeze on everyday Americans, right? Making life just a little bit harder, right? Because we need to, get together and sacrifice to make the country better. At the same time, subsidize tax breaks for billionaires and is starting wars halfway around the world. No, I would absolutely not support this war. We need to take back Article 1 war powers. And at the end of the day, we need to bring that money back home because life is too darn expensive for working class and middle class families. This administration is out of touch with that. And we need a Congress that can understand the people who in this country are hurting the most.
Bennett?
This one's really personal for me. I served in the military for over 15 years and I deployed to the Middle East in support of the Afghanistan war, which is Operation Enduring Freedom. I personally flew and led missions through the Strait of Hormuz, or was my helicopter in between the Iranian ships and the aircraft carrier to make sure we had safe passage through that airspace and water space. And anytime we're going to go put American service members in harm's way, there needs to be a clear motivation, clear objectives, and a clear exit strategy. We have not seen that at all from this administration. But to your question about the authorization of use of military force, we are still operating under the same one from 2001. So this is not just the Trump administration. We have seen multiple presidencies that have failed to act, and it's because of the political cowardice of people in office. And if we are going to go send America's sons and daughters in harm's way, the very bare minimum is we should make sure that Congress is actually voting on it. So that is the framework I will always evaluate anytime we're going to go put American service members in harm's way.
Dr. Shah?
The bigger question here is how is it that our president has done something so unconstitutional that he was reckless and just started a war in Iran? This is not okay. And let me just be clear, Tom Kean Jr. and the rest of his Republican buddies in Congress have empowered that and have allowed that. This is unconstitutional and even more emblematic of all the things that Trump has done in this administration where we haven't had accountability by Congress. That is the Epstein files. That is watching what ICE has done as they've murdered Americans on our soil. We need to make sure that we flip this seat because we have to hold Trump accountable, not only for the Iran war, but also for the other things. The last thing I'll close with is people don't talk about what happens when you send soldiers over. Because when they come back and they're veterans, we have a VA that we need to make sure that we take care of them. But our president has dismantled the VA. Now, I serve veterans as a physician. It's so interesting that he decides that he can go to war, but doesn't care about the very people that he says he claims to care about.
So I'll just put directly the question of the AUMF to you. Is there any circumstance where you could see yourself voting for that?
No.
Okay. And then this next question will go to Mr. Varela. The years-long war in Israel and Palestine has made many Democrats in Congress unwilling to support further military aid to Israel. Would you support conditioning aid to Israel or perhaps even blocking it entirely based on the country's actions in Gaza?
Sure. So for starters, when we are providing aid to countries overseas, there are two things that they need to be in compliance with right now, which is following U.S. law and following international law. But one of the things that I believe as taxpayers is we should not have any hesitation to provide additional conditions, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, when it comes to this age that we are living in, we can't will influence through military power, right? We don't want to start a million wars or go and send our troops into harm's way so that we can get something that is to our benefit. That is where soft power comes into play. And one of the ways that we can leverage soft power and really build soft power is through the aid that we are providing to other countries. So from where I stand, if we're going to provide aid to countries, I don't think it's enough to just follow U.S. law and international law. I would actually support providing additional conditions to make sure that we can further American interest and to make sure that the countries that we are helping are living in alignment with our values.
Yeah.
Israel is one of our most important partners when it comes to the Middle East, and I do not support conditioning aid. As a physician, what I will say, when we think about what is happening in Gaza, it's unbelievable. It is so hard to watch. People are getting killed. People are furthermore dealing with this humanitarian crisis. There's famine. There's lack of access to basic medical care. This is what Prime Minister Netanyahu has done. Now, I don't think that should change our relationship with the country because of one prime minister, and that's why I don't support conditioning aid. It's time that the entire global community steps up so that we can get to a two-state solution as fast as possible for peace.
I support conditioning aid to Israel up to U.S. law, international law, humanitarian law. Look, I firmly believe in Israel's right to exist, to defend itself against the horrible terrorist attacks from Hamas on October 7th. And I can support Israel and say that Netanyahu has been horrible. As a Jew who has deep ties to Israel, it makes my heart bleed anytime I see a video of something. This past week, I was honored to join at the Islamic Center for a forum. And I shared my own story of my grandparents surviving the Holocaust. And they survived because in 1939, they were taken on a boat to Palestine. And a gentleman came over to me after and shared his story of having 20 family members in Gaza right now. And it broke my heart. The conversation ended with a hug and a tear from at least one of us. But we have to remember in this conflict about our shared humanity. Thank you.
So, I've had the opportunity to see how important Israel is as an ally to the United States. I had the chance to work with Israeli military contractors during my time as a test pilot. And I do believe that Israel has a right to defend itself. And I do believe we need to work towards a two-state solution. I also think that what Netanyahu is doing is not in the best long-term interest of Israel, just like I don't think what the Trump administration is doing in the best long-term interest of the United States. And so to me, the framework that I would use to evaluate this is that Israel needs to be held accountable to US law just like any other ally. There shouldn't be a higher standard or a lower standard. And so to me, it's about making sure they're following US law, and that is the framework that I'll use to evaluate it in office.
Is that something that could mean conditioning aid?
I'm going to be focused on making sure that Israel is following US law, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, you can, if you would like, Ms. Bennett, it's
just
your
keeps on
turn to
happening.
stay up if you'd like
Oh,
for the next question.
every time, yeah.
Your choice. No matter which party controls the next Congress, President Trump is likely to continue to govern via executive action, including his ability to veto any legislation that checks his power. Is Fight Trump a rallying cry or a strategy on how do you balance power in the next Congress?
So I feel very strongly that we've got to walk and chew gum here. So we absolutely need to hold this Trump administration accountable for the corruption and the lawlessness. I mean, it is just breathtaking and on display. I mean, just what last weekend we saw that Eric Trump's companies, drone companies getting like a kickback. I mean, the corruption is just gross. And so we have to hold them accountable. And we also have to solve the issues that we are facing in this country. And that means tackling our cost of living crisis and actually making sure we are solving the problems that we're all facing. And so to me, it's a both and, that we've got to walk and chew gum at the same time.
The Trump administration has obviously had a very easy time so far steamrolling Congress, because there's no one that's really trying to stop him and get in his way. And I think when Democrats take the House back in November, come January, it's going to be a little bit harder. And for starters, where I would immediately focus are looking at the things that are affecting affordability the most and find bipartisan support to address those issues, because I've got news for you. Just because you're a Republican, just because you're a Trump voter, does not mean that you are immune to the national economy that we're all undergoing. Furthermore, there's other issues where there is bipartisan support. There are people on both sides of the aisle that want to ban congressional stock trading. There are people on both sides of the aisle that want a lifetime ban of members of Congress becoming lobbyists. There are very common sense issues where there is bipartisan support, and I would work to achieve that, because if we can do that, we're going to remove money out of politics, we're going to have a pure democracy, and we're going to be able to move forward on addressing the issues that are affecting Americans the most, especially around affordability.
We absolutely cannot move to reconciliation until we have accountability. We have to have accountability over Donald Trump, over Pete Hegseth, over every single member of the Trump administration who has broken a law, and that is a very long list. We also have to have accountability over the corporate CEOs and the foreign governments who have broken a law. We have to restore Congress as an equal branch of government. We have given that up. That's part of the reason that we are in this mess. This has to be an equal branch of government. And so we have to make sure when the Democrats take back the House that everybody understands that we are going to control the House Judiciary Committee, and we're going to show everyone what accountability in this country looks like, what democracy in this country looks like, what justice in this country looks like. And it's not about revenge. It's about actually restoring our democracy.
I think we use the word fight a lot because we are just so damn tired of what's happening right now. We're watching career politicians making sure that they can just keep their jobs rather than doing something. And that's why I'm running. Now, I've served at the highest levels of federal government over 3 administrations. What I have seen is a civil service corps of people that know how to get things done, that are trying to lower costs for all of us. But what we have right now is Trump having Congress in his pocket and also having the judicial branch in his pocket. That's why we're here to flip this seat. We can do better. When I am your elected member of Congress, I will take my experience and not only make sure that we fight for CD7, but we do it in a quick manner. I have staffed cabinet secretaries as I've gone to the Hill. I do understand the relationship between the executive branch and between the congressional branch. And it's time we get change now, not let Tom Kean Jr. and his career politicians make life more unaffordable.
This next question will also start with you.
Okay.
One of the 180 facilities that President Trump has exempted from the Clean Air Act is a pasteurization plant in Linden that employs nearly 50 people in this district. Would you oppose this exemption, even if it meant the plant could close and your constituents would lose their jobs?
The Trump administration is putting us in a false dichotomy. It is possible to make sure we have clean air and make sure we have jobs. So that's my answer for Linden, because the people that probably work in this facility may likely also live in an area where they need clean air to breathe too. Now, I'm a pulmonologist. I literally see patients because they can't breathe. And the biggest thing we can do is make sure that we get the EPA to regulate greenhouse gases and make sure that our air has low pollution, because otherwise we're going to see asthma attacks go up, heart attacks and stroke, and nobody wants that. So I refuse to acknowledge this question that the Trump administration is trying to force us to say, do you want jobs or do you want good health? I want both.
So I was hired by Governor Gretchen Whitmer when they had about 10,000 jobs that were in factories that were supposed to be shut down for exactly the same reasons that we're talking about here. And what we did was we brought in billions of dollars of investment into clean energy, into EV manufacturing. And then my company, employee-owned company, helped to train those workers from those factories to get jobs into jobs of the future. That's the kind of thinking that we need to do here. We need to be bringing 21st century jobs into New Jersey and then training people, upskilling people into better paying jobs. And that's what I've done for 15 years. And that is what I will continue to do as your member of Congress.
So I think that we have been taking our environment for granted for way too long. And this administration is specifically going out of their way to attack the environment, right? We've looked at the gutting of money towards programs that are meant to address climate change, the cutting of money towards green programs that are meant to spur new industry and new jobs. And for me, this is fake, right? And what I mean by that is that it's not either or, right? We can protect the environment and work hard to make sure that we're taking care of people so that they're not getting sick. Good plug for Medicare for All, by the way. And secondly, we can invest in the programs to make sure that people are not unemployed, right? To make sure that we're actually growing the middle class. And the best way to do that is by creating jobs for people right here in this district.
So, one of the things that I think about a lot is what version of this planet are we going to leave for my daughters? Because the climate crisis is here and we do not have time to wait. And I think the beauty of this is that we have an opportunity to be the world leaders in clean energy manufacturing and also to make sure that we're fighting a climate crisis. But part of this is making sure we're getting the resources back to the district to be able to address these issues. And, I'll say one of the things I've heard out in Hunterdon County, for example, is, PFAS is a massive issue in our water. And, in the town of Clinton, for example, there's 15 wells that need to have PFAS remediation. And each one of them costs $1 million to be able to get that done. And the town of Clinton does not have that amount of money. And so to me, it's about, as a member of Congress, showing up and listening and hearing about the issues that we're all facing in our different communities to make sure we're able to get the resources back so that we can all have clean air and clean water, and that my girls and all of your kids are going to be able to live in a safe and clean state.
Thank you. This is a relatively young field of congressional candidates, and that's a really good thing, but not everybody's as fortunate as you. So we're going to take a 5-minute break because this is a long debate, and we want everybody to be rested. So 5 minutes starting now, real 5 minutes, and we'll be back. You're the mic should be off.
Yeah, it's fine.
Everything is getting more expensive. Rent, groceries, insurance. Uber is essential to passengers. Insurance has gone up. This is hard for people.
Join our fight to protect your access to affordable rides. New Jersey is home to the best public schools in the nation. And that didn't happen by accident. It's the result of parents, educators, and communities working together year after year to give our students a world-class education, no matter the challenge. Because parents and educators know that with a shared commitment to our public schools, our children can learn, grow, and thrive. And together, we can keep New Jersey's public schools the best in the nation.
Is that? It's gonna be okay.
The Union County Performing Arts Center in Rahway, New Jersey is your destination for concerts, comedy, theater, dance, and so much more. Catch a show at the historic main stage or get up close to the action at our Hamilton stage, both a short walk from Rahway train station with free parking just steps away. From family events to world-class performances, there's something for everyone. So get your tickets now at 1601 Irving Street in Rahway or ucpac.org.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. And we're going to go right into the questions. Mr. Roth, the first one is going to be for you. There are those and mission are fundamentally incompatible with humane immigration systems. Do you agree that ICE ought to be abolished? And if so, what would your alternative be to protect the U.S. borders in practice?
There was a story out just yesterday about how kids have stopped going to school because they are scared to go to school because they're scared of getting picked up by ICE agents. If our kids can't go to school, where have we gotten to in this country? I have been very clear from the beginning, I was the first one to say, I believe that we must defund and dismantle Trump's ICE, period. I believe in immigration enforcement. It needs to be focused on dangerous criminals. I believe that it should be reinstituted under the Department of Justice, where all other criminal justice systems are, not DHS as it is right now. And we need to make sure that they are upholding the law, that there is real justice there. And what we are seeing right now, this is just authoritarianism. It's a secret police, and we have to change it.
Yes, Dr. Shah, and then Mr. Varela.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We need to completely overhaul ICE. Now, look, I look like a person that can get picked up by ICE. I travel now with a passport. What has happened to our country? Under Trump, ICE has had its budget swell by 10x. ICE has also murdered people. I'm going to say their names: Alex Preddy, Renee Good, and we've had no accountability. So we need to completely overhaul ICE. We need to make sure that we have body cams. You can't be masked if you're an ICE agent. They need proper training. We need to right size what the budget is. And we need to make sure that ICE is not in our sacred places, like hospitals, like schools, and like places of worship. Thanks.
Mr. Varela.
As the son of Colombian immigrants, as a first-generation American, I'm absolutely appalled and terrified by what we're seeing in our communities. My beautiful wife has joined us here today, and it's not a story that I share often, but I have before. But my wife and I are genuinely concerned because my wife is a little bit darker than I am, and our daughter is lighter than the both of us. And we hear these stories of parents being picked up and their kids being left there or being sent with scary men. And I will tell you that as a father, I will absolutely not stand for that. And that's why I believe we need to dismantle Trump's ICE. But furthermore, I actually think we need to talk about dismantling DHS, because it is an organization that is way too large. We saw what just happened when we were fighting the funding to make sure that ICE wouldn't be funded, and how that affected all other parts of our ecosystem, like TSA and all of that. And lastly, I think that as taxpayers, we should be pissed. We are paying 3 times more money to deport someone's grandmother than what we're paying to protect this country from terrorists. It is unacceptable.
Ms. Bennett. Yes.
So I think it's important we take a step back and look at what is happening with ICE in this country. You know, the fact that we have mass unidentified agents that are murdering Americans in broad daylight, they are detaining 5-year-old kids, and they are deporting veterans is unacceptable. That behavior is not allowed in a war zone. It is certainly not going to be allowed on American soil. And so we have got to hold this organization accountable, just like any other federal law enforcement agency. Because what I hear from our police officers on the ground, which I think it's Police Appreciation Week, so if we have any officers, thank you for what you guys do. But you know, what I hear from them is that it makes their job harder because people are afraid to go to them and ask for help. And they've spent decades building relationships in these communities, and people are scared to go to them now. And so it's about making sure that we are holding ICE accountable and that they are held accountable to the law of the land, just like any other federal law enforcement agency, because we need to have good order and discipline in an organization.
Thank you. This is my my 5th NJ-7 debate. This is the most civil of all. So thank you for that. Mr. Varela, we're going to start with you. Each of you opposed plans for an ICE detention center in Roxbury. Do you oppose it because it's in the 7th district? Or do you oppose it because you oppose all immigration detention centers anywhere?
For starters, I don't think anyone should be profiting off of someone else's misery. I do not support for-profit detention centers. Furthermore, I think that we need to give municipalities more power when it comes to these detention facilities, like in Roxbury. I think municipalities should have power to veto, right? I think that we need to disincentivize investment from going into these types of facilities, whether it's banning private equity firms and Wall Street firms from investing or raising the tax rate specifically for this kind of a business. But again, we should not be profiting off of someone else's misery. We have Tom Kean Jr., who was absolutely silent on this entire ordeal. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until the entire Republican Council came out and called him out that he finally said something. And what he said wasn't even great. What he said was, here's what we're going to do for after these facilities are up and running. And throughout this entire race, the last year and change that I've been running, I never thought that I would be in complete agreement with an entire Republican Council.
Mr. Roth.
This is not a NIMBYism issue. As long as these ICE detention centers are not following law, are not providing health care, are not doing due justice for people who end up in them, they should be nowhere, not in New Jersey 7, not anywhere. And this is why I think anybody who you just heard on stage say that they just want to reform ICE, they have never run an organization, they've never run an agency, because you cannot reform culture, you cannot reform people. Okay? Until we actually move ICE, until we defund and dismantle ICE and put it into something that has a different culture, these detention centers should not be anywhere, and of course not in New Jersey 7.
Dr. Shah? Yes.
ICE was created to make sure that we could protect our borders, that we could have immigration control, and also to help with human trafficking. These are the goals of what ICE should be. But what Trump has done is completely turn ICE into a vigilante organization, and we have no idea where it's going. So I'm not okay with what's happened in Roxbury, because you know what? ICE is now taking humans and dehumanizing us. ICE is saying that we're the same as an Amazon package. We're going to put you in a warehouse and leave you there without medical care, without access to proper facilities. And that's why we're seeing this fight in Roxbury, where both Republicans and Democrats are not okay with what's happening. In fact, a court ruling today actually stopped ICE from continuing to refit this warehouse into a facility. And I'm really glad to see our courts step up here.
Yes, Ms. Bennett.
Yeah, I was very relieved to see the news today that the ICE detention facility in Roxbury is on hold pending the environmental review. And I think that, talking to people on the ground there, I know that elected officials reached out to Tom Kean Jr. and what they told him is, I don't want to get involved. What is the point of you as an elected official if you are not showing up for your elected members that are on the ground there? And so I'll just say, for me, my leadership style, I refer to it as deck plate leadership. It's what we talked about in the Navy, of showing up and listening and being able to solve these issues. But if he had talked to the people on the ground, what they would have told him is, it's a 42-person police force, it's an all-volunteer fire department, and oh, by the way, it would have impacted the clean drinking water for the vast majority of the state of New Jersey. And so I'm very grateful that the town of Roxbury and Governor Sherrill's administration stood up to fight back against this. But I also think it's important we take a step back and recognize that our immigration system, we have failed to have meaningful immigration reform in this country for over 30 years. And so our economy looked fundamentally different than it did back then. And I will focus on having actual meaningful immigration reform so we can actually fix our system.
The next question will start with you, and it will come from Lady Baldian, who is a soon-to-be, in fact, she'll be a Rider graduate as of Saturday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Micah. And hi, candidates. My question is the following. The 7th district includes some very conservative towns in Sussex, Warren, and Morris counties. When you are talking to more conservative voters, especially as you think ahead of the general election, how do you appeal to them without alienating Democrat voters? Thank you.
Well, congratulations on graduating.
Thank you.
It's a big milestone. My father-in-law is a super Trump MAGA Republican. Like, he is down the QAnon rabbit hole. And yeah, I know. It makes Thanksgiving very fun. But he loves his Democratic representative because she happens to be a veteran, but she is also killer at constituent services and so I think it's possible to be able to win over people because you show up and you listen and you solve people's problems. And I'll just say, for my father-in-law, they had an issue with their backyard and they called and she got it fixed and now he loves her. And, we see this all the time. We see it with local elected officials and leaders. And so that is the approach that I'm going to bring. But, people are going to get to know me, get to know my values. They're going to know that I'm going to make the right decision in the room when the door's closed. And so we may not get every single Republican, but there will be Trump Bennett voters because they may not vote for every Democrat, but they'll vote for Rebecca Bennett. And that is how we're going to be able to put together the coalition that we need to be able to flip the seat.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I think that we have this preconceived notion that no matter what, it's absolutely down the middle. You're either left or you're either right? And that couldn't be further from the truth. And yes, there are some people like Rebecca's father-in-law who, no matter what you say, will always love Trump, right? But I believe that there's a huge portion of folks that are really just looking for a better life. As a matter of fact, that's why we saw Trump in 2024 succeed. The fact of the matter is he out-messaged us. He outmessaged us on the economy. He outmessaged us on affordability. He lied, but he still outmessaged us. And that's why we saw so many people shift towards Trump, right? But then we saw it happen again in 25 when Governor Sherrill won and when Democrats all across the country won. Because we outmessaged on the economy and people are coming to terms that Trump is a liar. And so I believe that affordability was the leading issue in 24 and 25, and it'll be in 26. And when I'm sitting down with families talking about kitchen table issues, it is not about the left solution. It is not about the right solution. It is about the solution that's going to fix the issues, because now it is top versus bottom.
Thank you for the question. Congratulations. So I was in Sussex County, in one of the most reddest towns of this district, and I was invited onto a farm because they had received federal funding from the SBA. We had a relationship, so they trusted me. And the farmer brought me in and said, I don't think that we're going to make it to next year. It's a farm owned for 100 years. I don't think we're going to make it to next year because of three things. The tariffs cut off his customers. Immigration policy means his workers no longer show up to work. And the war in Iran is increasing his fertilizer prices by $50,000 and his diesel prices by $50,000. If you've ever seen a P&L on a farm, it cannot handle $100,000. So I don't believe that as a Democrat in the seat, the play is to run towards the middle. I never think it is. It's to stand true in who you are, fight for your values, and make sure that you are showing up for the people on the issues that matter.
Well, first, congratulations again on your graduation and your job at Green Acres. This question to me just goes back to the heart of what's happening in CD7, which is that people are hurting. They want to see a leader who, unlike Tom Kean Jr., is going to work across the aisle and is going to get something done and something meaningful. Here in New Jersey, after seeing too many people just not be able to get basic medical care, even though they had health insurance, I started with 5 people. Our 5 people became a larger group and a larger group. And 18 months later, we had built such a big grassroots network that we got a bill passed into a law that stops insurance companies from denying essential medical care. That was bipartisan. When I go to DC, I'm going to take the same Jersey playbook, and we are going to look for bipartisan solutions to lower the cost of healthcare, which is a top economic issue, but also address the fact that gas is too expensive, that food is too expensive, and we're worried that our jobs aren't going to be able to allow us to make rent. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next question will also be for you, Ms. Shah, if you want to.
Sure.
So the 2 most recent Republican majorities in Washington have made healthcare a focus. First with the ultimately unsuccessful Obamacare repeal in 2017, and then more recently with the new restrictions placed on Medicaid by the current congressional majority. So if Democrats were to retake Congress, what do you think should be their first priority when it comes to healthcare? And, you know, as a physician, I'd be curious to get as specific of an answer to this as possible.
How many minutes we got? We got one.
We got one.
Okay, so this is it. We have to lower costs and ensure that we get quality care. The first thing we need to do is stop what Trump got rid of. We need to restore the funding for Medicaid. We need to make sure that we have the credits so that people can afford their premiums when they buy their own health insurance on the marketplace. Second, we need to make sure we lower the cost of prescription drugs. Trump has tried to negotiate on drugs, but he's not doing the drugs that most of us take, like high cholesterol drugs, diabetic drugs, hypertension drugs. We need a physician in the House because I have the stories of my patients and I know where we need to focus so that we can lower the costs immediately. And let's address this whole insurance issue. Now, I think the fastest way to get to an affordable health insurance is to offer Medicare or something else as a public option. And not only that, we should take Medicare and expand it. And seniors know this. We need to make sure that it not only has what it has now, but it includes dental and includes vision. Because last time I checked, everything is in the same body.
Jarrell? Oh, sorry.
I was talking with a voter this past week who shared something with me. He and his wife are small business owners. Because they're small business owners, they get their health care through the Affordable Care Act. But since they rolled back these ACA subsidies, his cost for insurance has ballooned to $33,000 a year. This is a man who is a cancer survivor and is suffering from Crohn's disease. It's a chronic illness. He can't afford healthcare, but he can't afford to not have healthcare. So the man is now working 3 jobs to keep up with his expenses. Do you know how crazy that is in this country, in the greatest country in the world, the wealthiest country in the world? Day one, we need to roll back the ACA subsidies. We need to drive funding back towards Medicare and Medicaid. And we need to start working towards a solution that will work. We need to support Medicare for all. And until we get there, we need to support anything that will drive the cost down while improve the quality of care, whether it's creating a Medicare for all who wanted option or expanding the age of Medicare down to 50.
To Ms. Bennett and Mr. Roth.
So I was talking to someone at an event of mine the other day, and she's an ER nurse, and she told me that she had a baby recently, and the baby needed to go to the NICU. And she told the hospital not to put the baby in the NICU because she couldn't afford it. That is the reality of our health industry right now. And it is important that we recognize that patients are not happy, providers are not happy, caregivers are not happy. And so what can we do to fix it? In the short term, I believe we need to undo what was done last year with the One Big Beautiful Bill. Tom Kean Jr. was the deciding vote on that legislation. And he is the reason why tens of thousands of people in our district are going to lose access to their insurance, either through the Affordable Care Act subsidies or Medicaid cuts. And what that means ultimately is those people are going to wait until they get sicker and they're going to go to the emergency room, which is the most expensive place to get care. And then longer term, I believe we need to add a public option to build on what was done with the ACA to give people choice. I also think we need to expand on what was done in the Inflation Reduction Act to make sure we can continue to leverage the power of the federal government to negotiate drug prices. But we have to make sure that people do not go broke because of their health insurance.
At an event earlier in my campaign, a couple came to me and they said, should we get a divorce? Not a question I get often on the campaign trail. And they explained to me that if they got a divorce, one of them could afford their insurance because they could be on Medicaid. They could qualify for Medicaid. We have Republicans who are stripping healthcare away from people, but we have Democrats who are fighting for a status quo that is completely broken. We spend $6 trillion a year on healthcare, and we have the worst health outcomes of any industrialized nation. I believe healthcare is a human right. We need universal healthcare. I believe the fastest way to get there is through a public option. 2, we need to lower costs. We have corporate monopolies in our healthcare system who are making record profits, increasing their prices, lowering the quality of care. We have to have antitrust laws that break them up. And 3rd, we have to start paying for outcomes rather than per visits so that the incentives are correct. Most of all, we need politicians who know that our healthcare is not a pawn, that is our human right. Thank you.
But before you go, you have to tell us, are they staying together?
It's a good question. I need to follow up with them. There is definitely love between them. I don't know if the marriage is still
I stepped right into giving you extra time.
Mr. Roth, the next question will be for you again. So,
is it also about marriage?
It is not about marriage. President Trump said yesterday that he wants to suspend the federal gas tax as sort of a way of bringing down what is currently very high gas prices, something that would require an act of Congress. Do you agree with him?
I think that we absolutely need to lower the cost of gas. We see every single family in this country who is struggling because of the rise in gas. The thing that the Trump administration doesn't understand is that every single time that they are cutting something, which this would be a cut of revenue to the government, that they are making our future, our kids pay for it. The best way that we are going to lower our gas prices is by ending the illegal war in Iran. That is what we should be focused on right now. We do not need to give them an out on that. We need to make sure that we have an end to this war and make sure that we are not piling debt upon debt for our kids.
So what we have is a very incompetent administration, and let me explain why. I mean, you all probably know. But we have an administration that attacked green energy, attacked green tax credits, attacked renewables, and they doubled down on oil. After they doubled down on oil, they went and started a war and drove the price of oil up. An administration that campaigned on lowering costs made your life more expensive, while his billionaire buddies are actually making money off of all of this. To me, that level of incompetence is unacceptable. We need to make sure that we're fighting for policies to reduce the cost of oil. And we really need to make sure that we're taking funding to invest back into the same programs that are going to actually lower utilities. I'm talking about green jobs. I'm talking about renewable, wind, solar, because ultimately oil right now, because we have no choice, logistically, this is the corner that he's boxed us into. But long term, that's not the solution. It's got to be renewables, and it's what's right for our economy to expand a stronger middle class.
So quickly, do you think that the federal gas tax should be suspended? Is that a policy that you agree with?
That's a policy that I mean, if I have no other choice, we have to lower the cost of gas. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that where we end?
Yeah,
Sure.
that's it.
The next question will be for Mr. Varela. The Financial Times reports Democratic candidates are being advised that because AI companies plan to spend more than $300 million in this year's elections, it will be easier to say nothing critical of AI, even though voters are increasingly wary of it. Have you received this advice, and what's your view of how AI will affect NJ-7?
No, my campaign manager is not Niccolo Machiavelli. No, absolutely not. We look at the issues on a very real basis. For the record, I am pro-AI. I think that AI can lead us to a very wonderful future, but not if we let it be unregulated. We need to regulate AI, and we need to do it now. And it's not just for our own sake, because we've seen the crypto scams and everything that came of that. For those who believe in AI and think that it is the future, it is for AI's sake as well, right? At the same time, we need to be very understanding of what's happening on the ground. And we've got data centers popping up all over the place. Data centers that are destroying communities, data centers that are hurting the environment, raising the cost of utilities. And I believe that if a data center wants to get up and running, we need to make sure that they are paying for their own infrastructure, that the cost of energy is not being subsidized by the local community, and that there are environmental reviews taking place so that it is not sucking up all of the water in around the area. Take that, AI.
If a consultant came to me and told me that I should not say something because, not because it's not right, but because it's not what's going to win you the election, they know that they would be fired. Look, the approval rating of Congress is at an all-time low, and this is why. Because people are not actually speaking and talking about what they believe. And I hope that what you feel from me and what you hear from me is exactly from my values, from my heart, what I believe. And what I say to people is, if you agree with me on 9 out of 12 issues, you should probably vote for me. If you agree with me on 12 out of 12 issues, I'm either lying to you or I'm avoiding a question, and I will never do that. On AI in particular, look, it is going to be a massive change. We need huge workforce development programs to help retrain people. I believe that we need an AI dividend, so that if and when these companies skyrocket, that the American people have a stake in that. And so I'm not afraid to say any of that, because that is how I want to represent you all in Congress.
So I feel very strongly that we need to get money out of politics. I signed on to the End Citizens United pledge, which is I'm not taking any corporate PAC money. I also believe members of Congress need to not trade any individual stocks. I've already divested all my individual stocks. And also we need to get dark money out of politics. You know, I'll just say on the AI piece in particular, I do think we need to have a national regulatory framework around AI. And I think there's been a vacuum of leadership on this at the national level, because the 50-state patchwork is not going to work. I will say I'm an AI optimist. And by that, I believe that AI is going to do a lot of good things for society. It's going to help us cure diseases. It's going to help us do all sorts of new innovative things. And it's also going to disrupt people's jobs and careers. You know, the phone operator doesn't exist anymore, but there are new jobs that are being created. And so we need to be thoughtful and proactive about how we are making sure that we are setting up the United States to be the world leader in AI, and also that we are taking care of our workforce. And so that is the focus that I'm going to take for AI.
Yes.
I've also taken the pledge to accept no corporate PAC money, because I think it's really important to be accountable to the actual people in our community, not to these big special interests. Now, I'm the only candidate on this stage that has deep experience in AI. I was an employee in a small startup and was a chief medical officer and helped grow this healthcare AI company into a multi-billion-dollar company. And what we did was saw AI used for good. We used AI to get rid of the doctor and nurse spending so much time on paperwork that they couldn't listen to their patients and they couldn't help take care of people. So when it comes to thinking about our American AI policy, we want to be the leaders, and I am uniquely qualified to make sure that we set guardrails so that AI is safe, because it is already out there. We want to make sure that AI doesn't hurt us as consumers, as patients, and we want to make sure that we can live our lives and have good jobs. Now, here in New Jersey, we have an AI Center of Excellence, and this started in the Murphy administration. As your member of Congress, I will help partner and pull resources from the federal government to make sure that we're the leaders when it comes to AI, that it's safe, and that it creates jobs.
Thank you. The next question is for Ms. Bennett. Would Americans be better represented by expanding the House of Representatives and or the Supreme Court?
I will say that I think from the Supreme Court perspective, I believe that we need to have ethics reform. There needs to be more transparency. And I do believe that we need term limits. And, you know, on the House of Representatives, I think what we're seeing broadly across this country in this election cycle is there is a desire for generational change. We desperately need a new generation of leaders that understand the urgency of this moment and is going to act accordingly. And, you know, the way I describe this sometimes is, you know, the house is on fire. We got to go put the fire out. And the Democratic Party is bringing a knife to a gunfight, but it's like the prop knife. Like, it's not even like a real knife. It's like one of the play knives. And so that is the mindset I'm bringing, is that we need to move with a sense of urgency, and we've got to actually address the issues that we're all facing in this country.
So we need serious government reform. I talked about record low approval ratings of Congress. We need change. We need to end Citizens United and get billionaire dollars out of our politics. But we also need to reform the systems and modernize them so that they actually represent the government that we need. The Supreme Court right now is making decisions that take away voting rights from so many Americans, taking away reproductive rights from so many Americans. They have too much power. We need huge reform. I believe in term limits. I believe that we need actual ethics laws for the Supreme Court. The fact that we don't have ethics laws on Supreme Court justices is insane. And I believe that we need to absolutely look at expanding the Supreme Court.
So when it comes to the Supreme Court, when it comes to Congress, when it comes to the executive branch, we have a ton of distrust that has been generated with the American public in those institutions. And specifically around the Supreme Court, you know, we are seeing a body of people that are pretty much directing the future of this country. And I think that at a bare minimum, they should follow a code of ethics. I believe that there should be term limits, and I believe that Supreme Court justices should not have an ability to enrich themselves while they're occupying that role. You know, furthermore, I think that when it comes to looking at expanding the Supreme Court, that is something that I would consider. I think that we've proven that times are changing, and therefore our democracy must also evolve. And so that is absolutely something that I would take a look at as your member of Congress.
This comes down to a question of corruption that has been heightened by the Trump administration and what we're going to do to stop it. We should look at every possible option, but let's just bring it back down to here, to CD7 and to Rahway. We are tired of watching politicians and other parts of government just play with our lives. Why aren't we focusing on lowering costs? Why aren't we holding Trump accountable for the fact that he has allowed the gas price to go up so high, that he doesn't care that many of us now are wondering whether we should still pay for healthcare or whether we should make sure that our kids can go to school? We need to get back down to basics, and that starts by campaign finance reform and looking at every single way that we can root out corruption and hold Trump accountable. And Tom Kean Jr. is going to keep rubber stamping things, but I won't.
Dr. Shah, you can stay.
Glad to.
Okay. Food supply for the state, for the country, is a big part of affordability. Should Congress ban foreign individuals or foreign companies or foreign governments from purchasing American farmland and family farms like you have throughout the 7th District? Should they do that? Is that a role of Congress?
I think the role of Congress is to make sure that everyone has the resources they need to live a good life and to make sure that they can raise their families. And when I talk to farmers in our district, they're talking about how Trump's foreign policies, including what he's done with tariffs, including what's happened with the price of pesticides, are causing them to say, look, I'm not sure I can keep my farm alive. That's what we should really be focusing on. This is a big picture answer to your question, which is to say, I want to make sure that I listen to the people that know these problems the most. They are our farmers sprinkled across in Somerset and in Hunterdon and many of our counties, and to make sure that these folks that understand the challenges they're facing, that we actually deploy solutions. Now, I also want to take this opportunity to just remind everyone that Tom Kean Jr. has been silent on this issue too. He lives in our district and he has said nothing and done nothing to help the farmers in our district.
Thank you. Mr. Roth?
I think we need big, bold ideas. Like, we actually have the technology to create vertical farms, to have an abundance of healthy food for every single person, not just in the country, but across the world. The limitation on it is clean energy. We need a national clean energy buying plan that brings innovation in solar, in wind, in battery, so that we have so much clean energy that we can clean our water, so that we all have clean drinking water, so that we can actually grow food everywhere, so that every single person has healthy food. Energy is the currency of the future, and we need people to go to Congress who have big ideas, who understand how that currency can be used to improve the lives of every single person across our country.
Okay, but just I want to clarify it. You would not support federal legislation that would limit foreign ownership of New Jersey family farms.
Can you restate the question?
Sure.
I want to know if I'm saying affirmative.
And it's late, and I'm older than you.
I've got energy, David.
I just want to clarify. The question was, should Congress ban foreign ownership of U.S. farms?
I don't think a blanket ban, but I absolutely do think that we have to be looking at intentions of anybody. And I think that is a role that Congress can play.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Varela?
So farmers are part of this really insane supply chain, right? So on one end, farmers are buying their materials, their raw materials, to be able to plant and get their crops, right? And this group here is a very mega consolidated group that is basically dictating what farmers are going to pay for their supplies. Farmers then take that, they plant it, they grow their crop, and they're getting ready to sell. But now they're selling to the other side of the supply chain, which is also a mega consolidated group that is actually dictating what they're willing to pay. And oftentimes you've got farmers who are actually losing money every time they harvest and go to sell. That is a broken system. That is a system that is propped up by dark money and by Citizens United and by Donald Trump. So when it comes to the farming industry and why farmers are having to consider selling their land, it's because the business isn't making sense, and Congress needs to fix that. We need antitrust enforcement, and we need to be able to tear these consolidated industries apart to make it fair.
Thank you. Good. So we're as always running out of time for a lot of questions. So I'm going to give you the sort of the round that candidates just don't like, which is just to ask you to raise your hands if you agree with something, and I do this just to move through them. So raise your hand if you are committed to voting for Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker of the House if the Democrats win control. Okay, so seeing none, we'll move to the next one.
We got one.
Did we get one? Okay.
If the Democrats win control of the House.
That's the only way he could be Speaker, yes.
Then if the Speaker delivers that, then I would be willing for him to be my Speaker.
Okay. Do you raise your hand if you support age limits, not term limits, but age limits for members of Congress? Okay. And Congresswoman Mejia recently proposed a $25 an hour federal minimum wage. Raise your hand if you would vote with her on that. Okay. Raise your hand if you are open to replacing some of the money in politics with public financing of congressional campaigns. These are people that have done a lot of call time that would like to do other things. I asked this question in 2024, and both general election candidates, they both at the time said that they believed there was intelligent life on other planets. Raise your hand if you believe intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe. Okay. We have a general.
I wonder if intelligent life exists here.
So we're ready to move on to the closing statements. 60 seconds, and we start with Mr. Roth.
Thank you again to the moderators. I opened this up and I asked everybody to look for the proof. Look for the proof that you will fight against Trump and that you will lower costs. And I hope that everybody has taken stock of the questions not answered, of the DC consultant talking points. I'm the only one on this stage who has actually lowered cost, created jobs, delivered federal funding at scale right here in New Jersey's 7th District. And this race is so personal to me. In my family, we have a motto. People don't believe me when I say this, but it's everything is better in New Jersey. Not because this place is perfect, but because when my grandparents came over as immigrants, a community wrapped their arms around them and gave my family a shot. And that's why I'm standing up here today. And so when a place gives you a shot, you never turn your back on it, you stand up and you fight. And so I'm asking all of you to give me a shot now. I'm asking for your vote. And if you give me that, I will stand up and fight for you and your families every day so that we can all feel like everything is better in New Jersey. Thank you.
Ms. Bennett.
Thank you all so much for hosting this. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I have led in some of the most challenging environments that exist on this earth. I've led missions in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the night, where there's no margin for error, and I got the job done every single time, no matter what. I'm also a mom to 2 girls, and I'm raising my girls in this district, and I understand the challenges we are facing because my family is dealing with them too. And we talked about some of those solutions, those issues tonight. The way that we flip this seat is by building a broad coalition of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. My background as a military veteran, private sector leader, and mom uniquely positioned me on being able to do that. It is a scary time in this country right now, but we have something here in this district that we can do about it, because this is one of the most important races in the country this year to take back the House. And the news from last week makes it even more important. So I'm asking for your vote on June 2nd. Would love to have you on the team. Please go to Rebecca Bennett for Congress to get more involved and learn more, but thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Varela.
So this is a district that's literally moving by 1 to 2 points every single year. We need someone that can build a coalition. Look, I am not the establishment pick. I am not the DC pick. I am the outsider. And in spite of not being the DC pick or the establishment pick, I have built one of the broadest coalitions of anyone in this race. And what's particularly interesting is that this coalition is not a moderate coalition or it's a progressive coalition. It's a coalition that spans the entire ideological spectrum. I've been endorsed by Mayor Baraka, my dear friend Patricia Campos Medina, and I've also been endorsed by the former Senate President Steve Sweeney. I've been endorsed by Democrats that are winning in Trump double-digit areas. These are Democrats that know what it takes to win tough fights, and they've signed on to me. Secondly, we need someone who's going to expand our base. As I mentioned earlier, Trump attracted young voters, men, and Hispanics. I'm uniquely positioned to bring back the base that we lost in 24. He can't call me, Kean can't call me anti-business. I am a business owner. He can't call me, you know what? Vote for me.
Thank you.
I hate the 60-second thing.
Thank you to our moderators. I'm running for Congress because America's on life support. Families are worried about rising costs and corruption and Trump's attacks on our democracy. I took an oath to serve, and the honor of a lifetime was being appointed by President Obama. I've delivered real results for New Jersey families, from making sure veterans get the care that they've earned, to stopping insurance companies from denying care. And when it comes down to it, we are watching Trump attack democratic institutions and the medical experts that keep us safe. That's why we need a doctor in Congress, and I will fight Trump to protect science and our democracy. Now, Tom Kean Jr., he won't stand up to Trump, but I will. I've never shied away from a tough fight, and come November, I'm going to fight Tom Kean Jr. and win. Thank you so much. I hope I have your vote, and it was an honor to be with you today.
Thank you. And this concludes the New Jersey Globe Rider University debate for the 7th District. Debate brought to you by Uber and presented by RWJ Barnabas Health and the New Jersey Education Association. I want to thank the Union County Board of Commissioners and County Manager Ed Oatman, Senate President Scutari, Mayor Jacoby for hosting us. Thanks C-SPAN for airing this debate, especially to my team members here, Micah Rasmussen and Joey Fox for insightful questions, and to the rider students, both of whom live in this district, for some great questions, and to all the rider students who volunteered tonight, and special thanks to the New Jersey Globe's Kevin Sanders and Riders Tony Corbett for producing the debate. I want to thank the candidates for participating. This is what democracy is supposed to be about. You step up, you raise your hand, you say, I want to serve, and you answer questions about the issues facing your district. And I thank you all for participating. I remind everybody who's watching that vote by mail is underway. Remember to take responsibility for your own ballots and make sure that if you've submitted them, that they have arrived. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we look forward to seeing you, one of you, again in November. Thank you.
Yeah.